Well, sun's just coming up. It's going to be a beautiful day. Heading into the store this morning. The leaves are turning colors. Even though many of the trees have lost their leaves already, we still have some nice colors to show. I got another little task today too, besides working in the store. I've got to go check out a bee yard that Selena said had a bunch of dead bees in it. This is not a time of year where we should have pesticide kills, so I want to go see what's going on. You never know what the bees are getting into. I'm here in Dillard, Georgia, checking on a bee yard. John and Selena were here about a week ago feeding and checking. I was not with them. And when they got back, they reported that there was a lot of dead bees in front of the colonies, so I wanted to come in here and see how bad it was. It's not as bad as I was worried it would be. There is agriculture in this area, but it's been over for a while. They've not sprayed anything here for a long time. I talked to the farmer after John and Selena told me about that. There are a few dead bees on the ground, but I don't think it's anything that's going to keep them from surviving the winter. And those dead bees are about, looks like a week old. Some are older. Hate to see any dead bees, honestly. And they've all got it. All the colonies have a few dead bees in front like that. I've seen a lot worse. When they told me that, I was worried about there's a recycle center over there, probably about a quarter mile, where people take their trash and bottles and cans and things like that. And sometimes bees can get into dumpsters if somebody dumps something sweet. And if the attendees get mad or upset about the bees, sometimes they'll spray something to kill them. Anyway, not as bad as I had feared. 15 years ago, that building up there was a Piggly Wiggly store, little grocery store. And I got a call from the manager saying that my bees were in his dumpster so heavily that nobody could approach the dumpster. And if I didn't do something immediately, they were going to spray the bees and kill them all. Well, I had 64 colonies sitting right here. I told them I'd come out right away and have a look, see what's going on. Well, when I arrived, I could see clearly that not only were my bees in the dumpster, but every yellow jacket and hornet and probably bees from every other beehive within a mile was in his dumpster. They'd done something kind of dumb. They had a pallet of outdated ice cream and they dumped the whole pallet in the dumpster. Some of the cartons were broken and some were, just leaking even though they weren't broken. It was August, I think, if I remember correctly. Complete nectar dearth. The month right after sourwood. The bees get quite aggressive, robbing, and boy, they were tearing that dumpster up. I walked right over and looked in it without any veil on or anything. People that were watching me do it were absolutely appalled. As beekeepers, we know we can walk into a cloud of robbing bees without getting stung, but they didn't know that. And they later told me it looked like a scene out of a horror movie. I get it. Anyway, there was ice cream all over the place. It was oozing out on the ground, and the bees, I never thought ice cream would be a problem, but obviously it was. So I told them to call the dumpster people and have them pick up the dumpster after dark, and the bugs would all be gone, and then wash it out good the next morning, and he shouldn't have any more problems. And he did that and never had a problem again. We actually eventually became kind of friendly. I actually put honey in their store for a while. He was a good guy. He was just really angry about the bees being in the dumpster. So you never know what kind of mischief bees are going to get in during a nectar dearth. I used to have a bee yard right there where those trucks are parked. It was a great spot. The hills around here have a lot of sourwoods on them, and I always made pretty good sourwood crops right there. But about 10 years ago, They built this Exxon gas station right beside the bee yard. Used to be an old brick house there that was used as a farm office, and they took that out and built this gas station. So this is a real convenient gas station for a lot of people. It's the last easy diesel fill up for semi-trucks before they cross over the border into North Carolina, where fuel is more expensive. So sometimes there's a lot of activity here. One day I was picking up fuel myself when I went in to pay, and the lady noticed I was wearing white overalls, and she said, "Oh, are you a painter?" And I said, "No, I'm a beekeeper." She said, "Oh, we got a lot of bees in our trash cans. I guess we're going to have to spray them. I don't know what to do. I have no idea where they're coming from." She says, "I guess we're going to have to start spraying in our trash cans to kill them." I didn't enlighten her that, there was bees right out the back door. I don't know why she didn't know that. They're not, if you walk over to the edge, you could have seen them. Anyway, that day I decided I had to move the bee yard away from here. Here's an interesting development. We're getting a racetrack gas station right next to our Walmart bee yard. It's actually on the same property. I don't know what that's going to mean for us. I talked to the property owner and asked him if we could still have our bees there, and he said he didn't see why not, but he also mentioned that he was unaware of what problems may be ahead. Hopefully the bees will not get into too much trouble over there at the racetrack. We call this our Walmart yard because when we started keeping bees here, there wasn't a Home Depot. It's actually right across the street from Home Depot here in Clayton, Georgia. We parked in their Home Depot parking lot, and Walmart's just on the other side of the driveway there, and that's why we call this the Walmart yard. We're starting to get more and more businesses along this 441 corridor. I guess it's inevitable. Any place that's worth living is growing, and this certainly is. It's not too bad once you get off the road, but along this U.S. highway here, it's getting quite busy. For me, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. I don't like to see all the traffic and the people and all the commotion, but it's really, really good for our business. So I guess I just need to look at it that way. So John says this makes him look sexy. I don't know about that.
I said I can make it look sexy.
You can make it look sexy. Right, John can make anything look sexy. Right. Okay. Okay, well, we're up here. Well, John and Chris have a dirty job today. They're dipping 2x4s and 1x6s in oil and diesel. It's a 50-50 mix. And the 1x6s and 2x4s are meant to be parts of bee pallets. And we're going to try to get them assembled this winter. We have about 100 to put together. We purchased this lumber about a month ago. It's been sitting in a warm room that we normally use for warming honey before blending. And we put a dehumidifier in there and warmed the room up to about 90 with a fan. And we've just been letting the lumber dry. The pressure-treated lumber comes pretty moist. In some cases it's sopping wet. So I feel like you need to get the moisture out before you dip it in oil, or you lock the moisture in. And I'm not sure, but it seems like you might cause premature rotting if you do that. So good and dry. We can feel it. It's really dry now, and it'll really absorb this oil. We don't leave it in there for long. I just dip it a few seconds, and then we move it over and stack it up like this. And this stack will be left out in the sun and the rain and everything else for at least a month before we use it. We want the oil to soak in, and of course, after that amount of time, it won't be so oily to the touch when we're assembling things. We use a pretty good grade of lumber. We paid just a little bit extra money to get the above average grade. It's not quite clear or number 1, but it's not number 2 either. It's really something a little better than that. We work with our local lumberyard to get this stuff. And it was, again, it's already cut to length. It's ready to use. We just wanted to dip it in a little oil before we put it together. Especially the 1x6. That board that goes on the ground that touches the dirt, we have trouble with those rotting if we don't take this extra step and dip them in this concoction. and maybe a month from now I'll show us building the pallets. Okay. I don't know if this will be useful information for anybody, but I'll share it anyway. Been using buckets for a long time, I guess about 30 years now, and I've learned a few things. The buckets from the old days are long gone. These white buckets get brittle eventually and you really can't use them. The oldest buckets I have in this array right here are about 12 years old, and they become very brittle, and we're throwing them in these tote cages here. They're going to go to the dump. We basically have three types of buckets here. We got some that are 12 years old, some that are about 3 or 4 years old, and then we have, those are all white, and then we have black buckets like the one she was just handling. That's a white bucket. We have a lot of black buckets that got painted white, and they're actually the best. There's something about the black plastic makes it softer. It doesn't become brittle as quick. So a few years ago when we replaced some of the white buckets, we put a black stripe on them, so at a glance we could tell the difference between the newer ones and the older ones. And my guess is by the time we're done here sorting this out, we're probably going to take about 50% of our buckets to the dump. There's nothing less pleasing than filling buckets in the bee yard just to have one crack on you and have the syrup dump all over the place. So we're going to sort this out now so that doesn't happen anymore. Probably we'll get black buckets again, honestly, and then paint them white, because that seems to work pretty good. Straight black just gets too dark in the summer, and unless it's a really strong colony, quite often the black buckets will just dump syrup. When the sun comes up, it heats the bucket, the syrup runs all over the place, and if it's a strong colony, they keep up with it, but if it's a knot, you get a colony with syrup running out the entrance, and that's not very good. So anyway, the point of all this is I think we're going to buy black buckets to replenish the ones we're throwing away, paint them white, and kind of start anew in the spring. We've got our new trailer back from the sign shop. It now looks like a rolling billboard. This is a trailer we're going to use to take bee supplies to meetings and conventions in our area of the country. We're going to the Georgia State Beekeepers Association meeting this weekend. We're going to set up a nice booth there. And I think we'll try to start going to all the state meetings that are close to us. They're within a half a day or a day's drive. I think we'll try to go. Anyway, I think the trailer turned out pretty good. A friend of mine that owns a sign shop did it for us, and he did a good job. Well, our retail store is doing quite nice today. It's mid-afternoon and we've already had a lot of people come through. The reason for that is because of the fall colors. Even though they're not real brilliant this year because it's so dry, people still drive up from southern locations like Florida or South Georgia to come enjoy the colors in the mountains, perhaps on their way to the Smoky Mountain National Park or even north of that. And of course the colors in our county can be pretty nice too. The retail trade, when we first opened this retail store about 11 years ago, was running about 5, perhaps 10% of our overall gross revenue. These days it's up to 22%. I really like seeing that because the profit margin in the retail is much bigger, much higher than it is in the honey packing or wholesaling honey or any of that. The profit margins in the store, if I had to average everything together, the highs and the lows, we probably average about a 50% profit margin in the retail. Whereas with the wholesale, bulk honey and packing honey, it can range anywhere from maybe a low of 8 or 10% for our very biggest customers to a high of maybe 25 or 26% with our smaller wholesale customers. Our pricing is adjusted for volume, of course. We have a couple people that buy a serious amount of honey from us, and of course they get kind of a quantity pricing, of course. So anyway, I'm really pleased to see our retail trade increasing. It's becoming more and more a part of the big picture. Very happy to see that.